It's the main story in South Africa. Should you give money to campaigns to help run your country? This is the big story going on in the country right now. The former president, Jacob Zuma, has even lent his own voice to the debate, tweeting yesterday, and I can only translate for you, "It's bad. The holy of all holies sent forth to fight corruption are now the ones who are implicated in the dirt and corruption. I wonder how this will all end. Should it even begin is the question." I'll pose that to Alex Mashilo. Sir, I thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us. Should political parties and all their brandings really come with a sponsor's logo as well, as you find in football or something like that?
No, in the SACP, we don't believe in that. None of our regalia or materials bears the logo of any person who ever donated any cent to the party, except the logo of the members of the party, which is our corporate identity, the hammer and the circle, and the black star.
But Dr. Mashilo, it's easy for you to say that right now, but I guess the debate is ensuing because you get a sense that people don't trust capital for its truism.
Look, we live in a class-divided society. It is a fact that when capital makes a contribution to a process, it has a particular end in mind. The problem is when you want to confine that to a single individual, or you want to give us little knowledge, and on the basis of that dangerous thing called little knowledge, you want us to conclude the way forward.
President Cyril Ramaphosa was your chosen candidate. You were probably the first organization, apart from the mother body, which was also late because there was supposed to be an election campaign first, to support President Cyril Ramaphosa. As a communist, how do you feel about the monies that were raised? Do you feel that everybody else should also declare where their money comes from? And aren't you uncomfortable with some of those donors? Aren't they essentially part of the system that you as the SACP is fighting?
Just to make one important point before getting into details regarding your question, the SACP does not endorse individual candidates in the ANC. What we do, we condemn the wrong things and allow the candidates supported by the majority on the basis of their contribution to emerge. However, what we did in this instance, we opened up our organizational machinery and allowed President Cyril Ramaphosa to address our members to register his points of view. We had every democratic right to do so, and we do not regret having done so at all. The thing is that when you look at the ANC and its past conference, like all other previous conferences of the ANC which were contested, the contest was not made up only of one side. There were other candidates. If you want to become principled, you must acknowledge that everybody, including in the ANC and in society largely, knew that the contests involved donations, and that no single candidate can stand up and say, I did not receive donations. Now, because you are principled, you want to deal with the matter, avoiding the dangerous thing called little knowledge. It would be appropriate, you will make that call, that all the funds that were raised or received and the amounts must be fully declared for all to see. Because there is a possibility that what we know is just a piece of a bigger...
The tip of the iceberg.
Yes.
People say that people hashed their donation, that some people might have donated to all candidates, that some people donate to all parties in order to hedge their donation. But as an internal party mechanism, you're part of the tripartite alliance together with COSATU and the African National Congress. Is this an issue that comes up? Do you fear that our democracy could be at stake, that it could be sold to the highest bidder, as it were?
No, as the SACP were concerned, remember that we are the only political party, or rather the first political organization to raise our concerns about money politics. And when we raised these concerns, people said, you are communists, that's why you raise your concerns about money politics. And then when these things begin to unravel, we come back again when others are focusing on one side of the story to say, hey, hang on, avoid the dangerous thing called little knowledge. Rather, look at the picture as a whole. Let us have every cent that was raised, regardless of the candidate, declared, and then looking at that picture, analyzing the sources, say this is the way forward.
Alex, I must ask you something. Do you not, as the SACP, how do you feel about the fact that essentially the public protector who's supposed to look into public finances had to investigate a private party issue?
No. Your question should have been in relation to the issue of donations. Are we not concerned that the public protector has a movement that is now raising funds for her, essentially doing what she says other people have done? Remember that there are cost orders against the public protector. And then there is this propped up movement now, which is raising money.
It's a collection of everybody when you think about it. Themba Godi has joined in saying that she deserves our help.
No. It cannot be correct when it is a particular person who is occupying a key center of power in our society and incorrect for another person. Remember, when you talk about the public protector, the incumbent advocate, Busisiwe Mkhwebane, we are talking about contradictions. And let me demonstrate one of those contradictions for you. She says President Cyril Ramaphosa lied to Parliament, isn't it? But this is the...
Inadvertently or deliberately, she says.
Yes, but the Constitutional Court found her to have lied. And it says she advanced a number of falsehoods and misrepresented the facts of her analysis. In terms of that judgment, she must advise the public what sort of remedial action should be undertaken against her.
And that's what I wanted to ask
So you are
you.
discussing contradictions
But
when
that's
you are
what I
talking
wanted to ask you about the public
current
protector.
public protector.
And that's what I wanted to ask you, that shouldn't you lodge a case in that office against the public protector as well, if that's how you feel? Why hasn't the SACP done that?
Who is going to investigate?
Kevin Malunga is still around, I understand, until November.
Kevin is the deputy public protector.
The office is bigger than one woman, as it were.
That one person you are referring to is what the Constitution refers to as the public protector.
But the office is bigger than
It's
one
accountable
woman.
to her. Everybody in the office is accountable to her. She's the chief of that
But what
office.
can you do as the SACP?
We called on Parliament to take into account all the damning court findings against her, including the fact that she lied under oath as established by the Constitutional Court. And that there is a reasonable apprehension of bias established in one or two of the work she has done. And that there are just so many damning findings. All right, so Parliament can't ignore those Constitutional Court findings as well as the findings made by other courts, especially the High Court of South Africa.
Dr. Mashilo?
Those have to be acted upon.
We have limited time, but I need to come in here. Clearly, if you think that the public protector, the incumbent, Busisiwe Mkhwebane, is part of the problem and part of part of the
remember
fight back.
one thing. I'm saying when you are talking about her, you are highlighting
Contradictions. And I understand that, but I am saying...
And I gave you an example
Yes.
that she is investigating donations. And then there is this movement that is
Making donations on
and we
her
don't
behalf.
know who has contributed in those donations. Whether she is going to accept those donations is a different question, but she has already said she is touched by that. It means when, insofar as she is concerned, that
she is a bag
good.
of contradictions. And it's a point well made, and I appreciate that. But my question is, you asked Parliament to look into her fitness to hold office. there seems to be a more concerted fight back, if you will, a more concerted plan to make us more distracted about what's really going on. These things that Cyril Ramaphosa will be judged on come the NGC ANC conference next year. Do you think that if Parliament gets rid of her, that would be the end of this political fight back?
Look, when something happens, you don't just remove an individual. It is important to assess the entire structure and evaluate how possible did these things happen. You must adopt remedial action to prevent what has happened to happen again. But by the way, it could be that, but by the way, we agree with the ANC that there is a distraction and that there is an agenda to discredit the president. But we also agree that the money issue can be left unattended, because to us as the Communist Party, for example, it is a disadvantage to the working class. You know our ideology, the ideology of the working class. So it is an ideology directly contradicted by the actions of capital, although class struggle is not the only thing going on in town, which is why there is cooperation between labor and capital. What we need are sound mechanisms to regulate the problem, the issue, and to deal with any deviations going forward.
Briefly, and I'm stealing time here, I'm not even permitted to, but in the States, for instance, donation is a worldwide phenomenon. You know, you find donations everywhere in any democracy. But in the States, for instance, you'll have a lobby group like the National Rifle Association, for instance, which stands for guns and the lack there of regulation. And you will find, you know, entities like the Koch brothers who stand for narrow minority views and, you know, less inclusion. But we know those people are Donald Trump's funders. Shouldn't we know what Cyril Ramaphosa's funders' agenda?
I think your question is, shouldn't we know the funders' agendas?
You're really doing a great job at doing my job.
Yes, yeah. The question should be, you see, look at our parliament, 400 people. Political parties that are in parliament received donations. Individual members who are beneficiaries of those donations did not declare them. So the question must be, shouldn't we know the agendas of each one of the donors of all political parties? And the answer will be a resounding yes.
All right. On that note, thanks to my guest, the spokesperson of the South African Communist Party, Dr. Alex Mashilo.